When my mother called, she could barely speak through her tears. My little sister Chloe had cancer, stage 2 lymphoma, she said. Dad was selling his truck, Mom was draining her savings, and I wired money before I could even think. But when I opened the hospital invoice, something didn't add up. The doctor's name was misspelled, the address didn't exist, and the photos Chloe sent looked staged. Still, I wanted to believe her. Until the day I found out someone in our family was truly sick, and it wasn't her. I still remember the exact sound of my mother's voice that morning, shaky, broken, and trembling like the phone line itself was crying. "Lauren, it's your sister," she said. "Chloe's sick. It's cancer." My body froze. For a moment, everything around me, the hum of my apartment fridge, the traffic outside my Seattle window, just stopped existing. Mom explained between sobs that Chloe had been diagnosed with stage 2 lymphoma. The doctor said it was treatable, but she needed immediate treatment, and the costs were overwhelming. Dad had already sold his old Ford truck to cover the first deposit. Mom said they'd take out another loan if they had to. I didn't hesitate. I transferred $12,000 from my savings that same afternoon. I'd just finished paying off my student loans, $56,000 over 8 exhausting years, and for once, I'd finally felt like I could breathe again. But this was my sister. Breathing could wait. That night, Chloe texted me a photo from her hospital bed, an IV taped to her hand, a wristband, her skin pale under fluorescent light. She said she was at Riverview Medical Center. Her message read, "They say I'll start chemo next week. Don't tell anyone, okay?" Something about that message sat wrong. Why wouldn't she want anyone to know? And why did the background behind her bed look so clean, too clean? 2 days later, Mom forwarded me the hospital invoice for the first round of treatment, $72,000 USD. It had the doctor's name printed at the bottom, Dr. Benjamin Cross, but the cross was missing a single S. It read Cross. It seemed small, but my job at North Point Media Agency had taught me to spot details, the kind that change everything. When I searched the hospital's address, it didn't even appear on Google Maps. Only a luxe retreat spa with a nearly identical street number. My stomach tightened. Surely there was an explanation. Maybe the invoice was typed wrong. Maybe she sent the wrong file. But deep down, something in me whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. I'd spent my whole life defending Chloe, the pretty, fragile one everyone adored. If this was a lie, it wouldn't just be about money. It would shatter the one illusion that had kept our family together. That night, as rain streaked the glass of my apartment window, I stared at Chloe's photo again. The IV line, the lighting, the reflection on the metal railing behind her, it didn't belong in a hospital. It looked like the corner of a luxury spa. I closed my laptop, heart pounding. If I wanted answers, I'd have to go home. And something told me that when I did, I wouldn't recognize my family anymore. I drove home that weekend, 3 hours through gray Washington rain, watching the windshield wipers fight the storm. My mind kept looping one question: what if she's really sick? And I'm the monster for doubting her. The Mitchell house sat at the edge of Maplewood, same white siding, same porch swing creaking in the wind. The smell of pine hit me the moment I stepped out of the car. It was home, but it didn't feel like it anymore. Mom hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You shouldn't have driven, honey," she said, her eyes red from crying. Dad looked older, thinner. There were deep shadows under his eyes that I didn't remember. Chloe wasn't there. "She's resting at a facility near Riverview," Mom said. "They limit visitors during chemo." That didn't sound right. I bit my tongue. That night, as rain tapped the windows, I lay awake in my old room staring at the ceiling fan. Childhood memories started flooding back, the ones I usually locked away. Chloe was always the favorite. She had this smile that could melt anyone, and she knew it. When we were kids, if we fought, it didn't matter who started it. I was the one who had to apologize. She cried easily. I didn't. She dreamed loud. I worked quietly. Even at school, teachers would gush over how sweet and delicate Chloe was. I was responsible. That word followed me like a shadow. Responsible meant invisible. When I left for college, Mom told me, "You'll make us proud." When Chloe stayed home, Mom told her, "Don't worry, sweetie, we'll take care of you." That one sentence built the world we lived in. Me, the independent daughter, her, the fragile one. But fragility can become a weapon when people learn how to use it. And Chloe had mastered it. Over the next few days, Mom kept showing me updates from Chloe, texts, photos, even a short video. She looked pale, weak, wrapped in a hospital blanket. But when I slowed the video down, I noticed something strange, a reflection in the mirror behind her. A decorative candle holder shaped like a seashell. I knew that pattern. It wasn't from any hospital. It was from Lux Retreat Spa, a place Chloe used to post about on Instagram. My throat tightened. I didn't know what was worse, the idea that my sister was lying, or the possibility that she'd learned how to fake suffering so well that even our parents couldn't tell the difference. I closed the video and set my phone down, hands shaking. If Chloe was pretending, she was hurting the people who loved her most. And if she wasn't, then I was the one destroying her by doubting. But either way, I needed proof. The next morning, I opened my laptop and searched Riverview Medical Center again. This time, I didn't stop at Google Maps. I checked the Washington State Medical Board directory. No record of a Dr. Benjamin Cross, not in oncology, not in any department. I called the hospital's main line. Hi, this is Lauren Mitchell. I'm trying to reach Dr. Cross. My sister, Chloe Mitchell, is one of his patients. The woman on the phone paused. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have a Dr. Cross here. And no patient by that name. My fingers went numb around the phone. Could there be a mistake? I've checked our database twice. I'm sorry. I thanked her and hung up, staring at the blank wall in front of me. The silence in my apartment felt heavier than the rain outside. I pulled up the invoice Chloe had sent me. The hospital's logo looked slightly off-center. The paper texture didn't even look like a scanned document. It looked designed. Someone had made it. Then I checked the metadata on the photo Chloe sent from her hospital bed. The location tag wasn't Riverview Medical Center. It was Lux Retreat Spa, the same one from her old Instagram posts. My chest tightened. I told myself there had to be a logical reason. Maybe she stayed there for recovery. Maybe she used the spa for privacy. But deep down, logic didn't stand a chance against the truth that was slowly sinking in. I opened Chloe's social media. Everything looked carefully curated. Flowers by her bedside, captions like, "Fighting through pain with faith." Thousands of likes. But I noticed something strange. The same bouquet of purple hydrangeas appeared in 3 different posts, from 3 different days. Copy-pasted grief, manufactured sympathy. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. I wanted to scream, but there was no sound left in me. How could she do this to Mom and Dad, to people who'd give her anything? I decided to call her. She didn't answer. I texted, "Chloe, can we talk? I'm coming home this weekend." She replied 2 hours later, "Please don't, I'm too weak. I can't handle your energy right now." My energy. That phrase stayed in my head like a bruise. The next day, Mom called again, saying the hospital had raised the bill, now $144,000 USD, and they were considering taking a loan. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to sit behind a screen and watch my parents destroy themselves over a lie. I shut my laptop, grabbed my car keys, and whispered to the empty apartment, "Fine, Chloe. If you won't tell me the truth, I'll find it myself." And I drove toward Maplewood, straight into the storm that had been waiting for years to break. The road into Maplewood was drenched in fog that morning, the kind that made every pine tree look like a shadow of something you once trusted. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, my hands were trembling on the steering wheel. The porch light was still on, though it was already daylight. Mom rushed out as soon as she heard my car. "Lauren, you didn't tell me you were coming." Her hug was tight but brief, nervous, distracted. Her eyes darted toward the house. "She's at the treatment center again. Poor thing can barely move." I nodded, pretending to believe her. "How's Dad?" "In bed. He's been tired lately," she said quickly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her hands shook when she poured me coffee. Inside, the house felt smaller than I remembered. The air smelled like disinfectant and lavender. On the dining table sat a half-open envelope labeled Medical Loan Application. I tried to ignore it, but the number printed on top, $144,000 USD, felt like it was shouting. I went upstairs to my old room. The door to Chloe's was half open. Out of habit, I peeked inside. It looked nothing like the room of someone fighting cancer. A brand new Chanel bag sat on the dresser, price tag still attached, $5,300 USD. Next to it, a bottle of Dior perfume, barely used, shimmered under the light. The closet was full of shopping bags, some from boutiques I couldn't even afford. For a second, I almost convinced myself maybe Mom bought them for her. But then I saw it. An itinerary for a wellness investment summit in Portland dated 2 weeks ago. Chloe's name was printed on the guest list. Cancer patients don't go to investment summits. I opened her nightstand drawer and found a small notebook. On the first page, meeting with Ryan, finalized paperwork. My heart stopped. Ryan Hale, the same name I'd seen on an old Facebook tag from Evergreen Health Clinic, the clinic tied to the fake hospital records. I felt the air leave my lungs. My own sister had orchestrated an entire performance with props, partners, and profit. Downstairs, I heard the front door open. Mom's voice trembled with joy. "Oh, sweetheart, you're home!" I froze. Through the narrow gap in the door, I saw Chloe step inside. Perfect hair, perfect skin, perfect health. She wasn't pale, she wasn't weak. She looked alive in every way a dying person shouldn't. She dropped her purse on the table and smiled when she saw me standing at the top of the stairs. "Lauren," she said softly, "you weren't supposed to be here." Her tone wasn't shock, it was warning. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Chloe stood at the bottom of the stairs, holding her phone like a shield. Her nails were polished, her skin glowing, her eyes wide, but not from illness, from fear. "I texted you," she said finally, voice small. "I told you not to come." I walked down slowly. "And yet here I am." She looked around as if searching for Mom. I'm just here to pick up a few things before going back to treatment." I smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile she wanted. "Which hospital this time? Riverview Medical Center or Lux Retreat Spa?" Her eyes snapped to mine. Color drained from her face. "What are you talking about?" "You're really going to keep pretending?" I said quietly. "Because if you want, I can call the hospital right now and ask about Dr. Benjamin Crow with one S." She flinched, her lips parted, but no sound came out. "I know everything, Chloe," I said. "The fake invoices, the edited photos, the spa geotags, the investment conference in Portland. You lied. You took their money, Dad's truck, Mom's savings, and you used it." Tears welled up in her eyes, but something about them looked rehearsed. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I was drowning. I had credit card debt, I was behind on rent. Ryan said he could help me make it all back. He said all I needed was a little pity, a good story, and I thought." "You thought pretending to die would fix your life?" I cut in. She wiped her face roughly, her tone shifting from guilt to anger. "You think you're better than me because you left? Because you have a job, an apartment, a life? I stayed here. I watched them love you more every single year you were gone." The words hit harder than I expected. "That's not true." "Yes, it is," she shouted. "You were the responsible one, the perfect daughter. I was just the problem they had to deal with." Silence filled the room. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall. "You hurt them, Chloe," I said softly. "You didn't just take their money. You made them believe their child was dying." Her breath caught. For a second, I saw the little sister I used to know. Scared, fragile, human. Then her phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. "Ryan Hale, we need to meet tonight." She grabbed the phone, but not fast enough. I saw the name, and that was all I needed. "I'm done," I said. "If you won't tell them, I will." Her voice cracked. "Lauren, please, don't ruin this." I stared at her, stunned. "Ruin this? Chloe, this isn't a performance." Her face twisted into something I didn't recognize. Half fury, half desperation. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She didn't feel guilty, she felt exposed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room, replaying our conversation over and over. The echo of her words, "You were the perfect one, I was the problem." Maybe she believed that. Maybe that was the only way she could justify what she did. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to let her bury this under another layer of lies. When Mom came down for coffee, I said quietly, "Can you call Chloe? Tell her to come over. We need to talk, all of us." Mom blinked, uneasy. "Is something wrong?" "Yes," I said, "and it's time we stopped pretending it isn't." An hour later, Chloe arrived. She walked in carefully, eyes darting between us, sensing the weight in the air. Dad sat in his armchair, arms crossed, silent. The morning light caught the silver in his hair. "Sit down," I said. She hesitated but obeyed. "Mom, Dad," I began, sliding my phone onto the table. "You deserve to hear the truth from her." Mom frowned. "What do you mean?" I pressed play. The recording from last night filled the room, Chloe's voice trembling, confessing every lie, the fake invoices, the debt, Ryan Hale, the photos, everything. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad didn't move, didn't even blink. When the recording ended, the silence that followed was unbearable. Tell me it's not true, Mom whispered, tears spilling. Please, Chloe, tell me you didn't. Chloe's voice cracked. Mom, I didn't mean. Didn't mean to what? Dad's voice cut through the air, low and sharp. Didn't mean to steal from us? To watch your mother cry herself to sleep thinking you were dying? Chloe sobbed, hands shaking. I just wanted you to care. I wanted someone to see me for once. Chloe, Mom cried, collapsing into the chair. We've always cared. Dad stood up, his expression blank but his voice trembling. I sold the truck. That was supposed to be your mother's retirement. Chloe covered her face, sobbing. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat was dry. This wasn't triumph, it was devastation. Then Chloe looked up, eyes red but defiant. You think you're a hero, Lauren? You wanted them to love you more, and now they do. Congratulations. Her words hit like a slap. Before I could respond, she grabbed her bag and ran for the door. Mom called after her, but the sound of the screen door slamming cut everything off. The house fell silent. Dad sank back into his chair, staring at nothing. Mom whispered prayers under her breath, tears dripping onto her hands. I thought the truth would bring peace, but all it brought was ruin. And as I helped Mom pick up a broken mug from the floor, I noticed something wedged beneath the counter, a brown envelope with my father's name on it. Maplewood General Hospital, test results. My hands froze. He didn't notice me holding it, but in that moment I knew the worst wasn't over yet. The brown envelope felt heavier than paper should. I stood there, frozen, holding it like it might burn me. Dad was sitting only a few feet away, staring out the window as if the morning fog outside was easier to look at than the family falling apart behind him. Mom was still crying softly, whispering, my girls, over and over. And I was the one who had broken the silence open, only to find something much darker hiding underneath it. I slipped the envelope quietly into my bag. I told myself I'd open it later, when everyone calmed down, but that was a lie. Because deep down, I already knew what was inside. That night, the house was silent again. Chloe hadn't come home. Mom refused to eat. I sat on the edge of my childhood bed and stared at the envelope under the lamp's yellow light. My fingers shook as I tore it open. Maplewood General Hospital, diagnostic report, Edward Mitchell. The words blurred as I read them. Stage 4 lung carcinoma, prognosis guarded. It was dated 6 months ago. 6 months. 6 months of pretending everything was fine. 6 months of carrying this alone. My chest tightened. The father who had quietly sold his truck, who had never raised his voice, who'd watched his family disintegrate piece by piece, he was the one dying. And no one knew. I walked into the hallway, the floor creaking under my bare feet. His bedroom door was half open. The faint glow of the TV spilled into the corridor. He was awake, sitting up, flipping through an old photo album. Couldn't sleep? He asked without turning around. I swallowed hard. Neither could you. He smiled weakly. Old habits. When you're my age, sleep becomes optional. I wanted to scream at him for hiding this, for letting me waste all my anger on Chloe while he quietly faded in the background. But all that came out was a whisper. Why didn't you tell us? He didn't look surprised. Because it wouldn't have changed anything. Your mother would have worried herself to death. And Chloe... He stopped. She already had everyone's attention. I didn't want to take it from her. My throat tightened. You were supposed to fight, Dad. He gave a soft laugh, more exhale than sound. I did. I just picked the wrong battle. We sat there in silence for a long time, the TV flickering between commercials. Then he said quietly, whatever happens, Lauren, promise me you won't let this destroy what's left of us. I nodded, even though I didn't know if that promise was possible anymore. When I left the room, Mom was standing in the hallway. She had heard everything. Her face went pale as porcelain. He knew, she whispered. All this time, he knew. And before I could answer, her knees gave out beneath her. Mom collapsed before I could catch her. The sound of her body hitting the floor pulled Dad from his room faster than I'd ever seen him move. Grace, he shouted, his voice cracking as he knelt beside her. We got her to the couch. She came to after a few seconds, eyes glazed, breath shallow. What did you do? She whispered. You kept this from us? Dad didn't answer. He just took her hand and held it against his chest where his heartbeat trembled beneath her palm. Tears streamed down her face. All this time, I thought I was losing Chloe. I didn't know I was already losing you. He smiled sadly. You haven't lost me yet. The moment felt like glass, beautiful and breakable all at once. I stood there, helpless, watching two people who had built their entire lives around love and silence finally realize both had betrayed them. Mom by believing lies, Dad by hiding the truth. When she finally calmed down, he turned to me. You weren't supposed to find out like this. I swallowed hard. How was I supposed to find out, Dad? After your funeral? He didn't flinch. Maybe. The word landed like a stone in my chest. He coughed, and I noticed the faint tremor in his hands, the way his breath seemed to catch every few seconds. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. He wasn't just sick, he was fading. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the clock ticking on the mantel. Mom whispered, "We'll fight this. We'll get the best doctors." He shook his head gently. "It's too late. I've made peace with it. I just didn't want to see you all fall apart." Mom covered her mouth, trying to hold in a sob. "We already have," she said. I felt a strange stillness settle over me. The anger that had fueled me for weeks dissolved, leaving only exhaustion. All those nights I'd spent hunting for the truth, I thought it would give me control. But truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just leaves you standing in the wreckage. Dad reached for my hand. His grip was weak but warm. "You did the right thing, Lauren," he said softly. "Lies rot everything they touch, even love. Don't ever let guilt make you doubt that." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to forgive Chloe, to let go of the hate sitting heavy in my chest. But forgiveness felt like a language I hadn't spoken in years. Then Mom whispered, "What about Chloe? She doesn't know." Dad sighed. "She will, in time." Outside, headlights flashed across the window. A car pulled into the driveway. Mom looked up, her voice breaking. "She's back." And for the first time that night, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to open the door or lock it. The sound of the car door slamming made all three of us flinch. Through the window, I saw Chloe step out, her coat half-buttoned, eyes red and swollen from crying. She hesitated at the porch as if deciding whether to knock or run. Dad was the one who broke the silence. "Let her in," he said softly. When she walked through the door, the tension in the room thickened until it was hard to breathe. Mom couldn't look at her. I stood by the hallway, my arms crossed, every muscle in my body ready for another fight. Chloe's voice trembled. "I'm sorry." No one answered. She tried again. "I didn't know about Dad. I swear I didn't." Her words cracked halfway through, and her knees gave out. She sank to the floor, sobbing. "I was stupid. I thought if I had money, if I looked successful, I'd finally make you proud. I didn't know I was breaking the only thing that ever mattered." Mom covered her face with her hands. Dad stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table for balance. "Chloe," he said quietly, "you can't undo what's been done, but you can choose who you'll be after it." She crawled closer, crying harder. "I'll make it right, Dad. I'll pay it all back. I'll call the bank tomorrow." He stopped her with a raised hand. "We don't need your money. We need your truth." For the first time, Chloe looked up and truly saw him, the hollowness in his eyes, the pallor of his skin, the way his breath caught with each word. "What's wrong?" she whispered. "You look sick." He smiled faintly. "I am, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise." She stared at him, disbelief breaking into panic. No, you can't." Mom finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "He's been sick for months, Chloe. He just didn't want to worry us." Chloe shook her head, clutching at his sleeve. "You should have told me. You should have told us." He brushed a tear from her cheek with a trembling hand. "And would you have listened?" The question broke her. She buried her face in his chest, crying harder than I'd ever seen her cry. The sound filled the whole house, a sound that wasn't just guilt, but grief, too late to change anything. I turned away, my own tears spilling before I could stop them. For the first time, I didn't see a liar or a thief kneeling on the floor. I saw my sister, the little girl who used to beg me to play with her, who just wanted to be loved the same way I did. When Dad finally spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Promise me you'll forgive each other," he said. "Don't let my silence be the thing that keeps you apart." Chloe nodded, shaking. "I promise." And when she looked up at me, her eyes searched for something, mercy maybe. I didn't know if I had it yet, but I nodded anyway. Dad smiled, closed his eyes, and whispered, "That's my girls." For a long moment, no one moved. Then his hand slipped from hers, and the room fell silent again. 3 days after the funeral, the house felt hollow. The air still carried the faint scent of my father's aftershave, and every sound, the ticking clock, The kettle boiling, the hum of the refrigerator seemed too loud in the silence he left behind. Mom barely left her room. Chloe moved like a shadow, quiet, fragile. And I sat at the kitchen table for hours, staring at a folded letter the lawyer had handed me, Dad's last words. I'd been afraid to open it, maybe because opening it would make his absence real. But one morning, when sunlight spilled softly through the curtains, I finally unfolded the paper and began to read. My girls, it began. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get to say everything I wanted. Life has a way of slipping through our fingers while we pretend to hold it together. Chloe, I know your heart. You've always wanted to be seen, but you never needed to perform to be loved. You had that from the start. Lauren, you've carried the weight of everyone else for so long. Let this be the moment you finally set it down. Forgive each other. The world will try to teach you that justice means revenge. It doesn't. Justice is truth, and truth is what sets love free. His handwriting wavered, the ink smudged as if the paper itself had been weeping. By the time I finished reading, tears blurred every word. Chloe stood in the doorway, silent. I handed the letter to her. She read it slowly, her hands shaking, her breath breaking halfway through. When she finished, she whispered, I don't know how to fix what I broke. Start wit. That week, we withdrew what was left of the fake hospital money. Along with my savings, we used it to create the Edward M., a small charity. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive as a dramatic apology or a grand act of forgiveness. Sometimes it's quiet. It's choosing every single day to be a little more truthful, a little more kind, a little less afraid. Months later, I drove past Maplewood General Hospital. Sunlight hit the bronze plaque mounted near the entrance. The inscription read, in memory of Edward Mitchell, who taught his daughters that truth is the purest form of love. I stood there for a long time, reading those words again and again until they blurred with my tears. Justice served, truth healed, I whispered, and for the first time in years, I felt light. If stories like this speak to you, raw, real, and human, stay with us at Heartless Revenge. We tell the stories that remind you justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, honest, and earned. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and tell me, what would you have done if this were your family?